Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Nicolas Refn's Bronson. Now this is 2008 and it's his sixth film. And if you've seen my channel, you know that I've been doing a director series of Refn and reviewing his films in order. I've seen them all now, and then at the end I'll do a ranking. And this is Bronson, of course, the first Refn film I saw. And it was pretty much around the time it came out. Refn is, as I said before, when he's on form, he's a great director, and actually he's made, for me, one of the best films of 2010s, which we'll get to. Bronson is one of his most famous films, you could say, mainly because, it's about Charles Bronson, which is quite a famous, sort of case, and of course Tom Hardy stars as the lead role. Bronson is basically, of course, it just kind of chronicling, Charles Bronson's life. You see him as a kid for a little bit, and then you also, him in and out of prison. Basically, Tom Hardy narrates, of course, as well. And basically, it's a short film. It's no longer than 90 minutes, and it's a very much. It does say on the back, on the front, a Clockwork Orange for the 21st century. And while I don't agree with saying that, in the sense that it's basically Clockwork Orange, a modern version, because there's no comparison for me anyway. It is very much inspired, I believe, by a Clockwork Orange, because Refn has, I think, gone on record saying Kubrick is one of his big inspirations, and of course, when you look at this film, it's very much like a Clockwork Orange. And when I first saw it, I had never seen, obviously, Clockwork Orange, but now, since I've seen it many times, you can see a lot of parallels. But this is the sixth Refn, as I say, and it's not got the best of ratings. It's got solid ratings, in the sevens, the 70%, Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. But I think it's a really underrated film actually, and Tom Hardy. Let's start with Tom Hardy. An absolutely stunning performance, and Tom Hardy is probably one of my favourite, modern actors. And he's not really. He's maybe one or two of his films he's given just a performance that isn't too good. But this this is a contender for his best performance for sure. And there's only one other one that I think is probably better. But really, his performance in this is absolutely a powerhouse performance, and of course the way he narrates as well, combined with him being the main character, it's really quite something, because the narration in this film is stunning. It's very much a comedy, this film, as well at times, and the narration is kind of meant to be funny as well. But at times it's quite moving. It's always so focused, within the narrative, and it just works in harmony with Tom Hardy's actual performance. It's just stunning, and just the emotions that Tom Hardy shows in this film, stunning, and as well physical performance. His whole body. He uses all of his, all of the ways that someone can act, in this film, all the different emotions that he shows, and you do feel sympathetic, towards him. And I suppose, once again, like a Clockwork Orange, there's a lot of parallels. Of course, Charles Bronson, it's a very famous, he's Britain's most famous prisoner, and of course, most people would have heard of him. But yeah, I think it's just such a stunning sort of a portrayal and look at his life, all the key moments really, and it just Refn, I think Refn just achieves so much in this film. Very short runtime, of course, but just electric throughout. It's got a constant flow. The other side characters, you've got Matt King, who plays Paul Daniels, I believe. He was great in this film and added a lot of the comedy, and you've got Kelly Adams, Julia Oldfield as well. She was really great. She's kind of Tom Hardy's love interest in the film. And there's always a sense of comedy in this film throughout most of the scenes, while also being really powerful and shocking, of course. You've also got James Lance, who appears at the end of the film, the last sort of 20 minutes. But yeah, just the first time I saw this, I really loved it, and it's only grown on me every time since. It's a very much a pulpy film, a very the use of music and everything. Refn uses classical music in this, but also kind of pop music as well, and it uses it to great effect. Really perfect use of music on both ends of the spectrum. The classical pieces are used, to kind of give the film this otherworldly feel, and just the way it's combined with the slow motion. That's what Refn can sometimes mess up on, is the slow motions in his films. Other times, like Drive, this, he certainly pretty much perfects it, and the way that he uses classical music to kind of overwhelm you, and also just the elegance of it. It's kind of similar to Raging Bull, where you've got this intense character, but you've got this this serene music, this classical music that's used to kind of add that grace to it, and kind of just as well just help the film to flow that much more easier. And just all the music in this film is wonderful. The Pet Shop Boys, music as well, and stuff like that. And digital Versicolor, I think it was. But Glass Candy, that's an amazing track that's used quite a lot throughout the film. Could say that's the main theme, and it's always used in the right moments. The music in this film is used really to perfection, and just has such it's just used for such an effect on the mood of the different scenes, and just the narrative in this film is so strong. That is key. Refn directs this film really to perfection. Every act builds and builds, and of course it's not told really it's told in a non-linear way, because really at the beginning of the film you see that Tom Hardy is in front of this audience, and he's kind of dressed up and stuff, and you soon realise that that's in his mind. That's just him kind of, and Refn geniusly uses this to kind of, he basically tells the past events of Tom Hardy's, Charles Bronson's kind of life, but through flashbacks kind of, but it's always part of this big, this central narrative, and it's really adds a lot of options for Refn to kind of tell the story in non-linear ways, but it always has got progression to the actual events that he's retelling, and also, it's always got it adds a drive to the narrative constantly. The flow, is wonderful. The editing is really quite perfect in this film. Stunning, all the fades, and just the way it's put together, and as well shot. The cinematography really is only beaten by one film in his filmography, in terms of cinematography. One other film, and the uses of reds once again, and greens and everything. Very stunning. It's a very dark film, of course, and he uses all the colour palette in this film. It's used just so well to portray the different moods and the tone of the film. But it's very, very eye-popping as well at times, bright and eye-popping. It's just the perfect balance, really, of the colour spectrum, and always relating to the different mood and scenes and in the narrative. But really, it's just a stunning film. I can't praise it really much more. But the writing as well, it's so good. The script, and just always works for an effect, and it's just a stunning film. You're constantly engaged, and feel a lot for Tom Hardy's character of Charles Bronson, and it's such a powerful film. Although at first it seems quite a light-hearted approach to retelling the events, it does take very dark turns, and it's extremely moving, despite of course a despicable character, but that's what great directors can do, and writers and everyone, and actors, can portray these kind of hateful characters, but make you feel something for them, and stuff, and of course a very flawed person, but Tom Hardy just really perfects the role, and there's so much comedy used in the right moments to perfection, really, that it just kind of give the film, it's not overly serious, so it's light-hearted at times. It's really the perfect balance between that and the darkness that is in throughout the film. There is a couple of minor flaws, really. It's really just early on. There's a scene, in this kind of asylum bit, and there's this guy, and he kind of just craps, into his hand, and then he wipes it on his face, and of course I think it's based on a real guy, but the way that Nicolas Refn kind of lingers on that shot, and just the way that scene's played out, I don't think it was necessary, really, and I could have overlooked that. There was one other flaw as well that brought this just a little bit down, and that was the some of the scenes, you know, where he's well, most of the scenes really where he's kind of retelling to this crowd, you know, in his mind. It's really, really good. But there's a scene where one of the scenes where he just keeps turning his face and he keeps flashing, changing different, you know, characters and voices and stuff. And it goes on for a bit too long. One of them ones, and it's just not that funny. But really, for the rest of the film, the comedy lands every time, really quite perfectly. Just them couple of flaws that I mentioned that slightly detract it from being a full mark film. Because yeah, you know, I really think this is a masterpiece. And you know, it's a flawed one. It's got a couple of flaws here and there, as I've said. But really, everything else is so mind blowing. You know, the use of music, the performances, especially Tom Hardy. You know, one of the best of the century, really, taking everything into account. You know, it's so physical, but you know, you feel quite a lot for this character, even though, of course, he's, you know, despicable, you know, things he's done and stuff. But of course, as well, it shows a different light because, you know, Charles Bronson was a person who I don't think he ever actually killed anyone, really, over that time that he was in so much solitary confinement and stuff. So you know, it adds another light to that. But Refn he just does it really sincerely, so that, you know, it's not heavy-handed at all or in any sense. But you know, the writing as well, you know, one of Refn's best scripts in his films, and you know, the colour tone, everything, and cinematography, really quite perfect, mind blowing. And of course, as I say, the use of music and the sense of charm throughout the film. You know, it's such a warm film, and it's got all the comedy lands in the right, really, most of the time. The film, the side characters are so memorable. You know, the fight scenes as well that there are present, wonderfully choreographed, really stunning, and just the editing and everything as well, just so sharp, quite flawless, really. And that final 10 minutes is really quite legendary. You know, and just the way that the combination of the use of music and the performance and the editing, it gives this, you know, mystical feel to this character, and you know, kind of like Raging Bull, you could say. And yes, it's just really quite flawless for the most part. And there's so many things, you know, it's such a film you can watch again and again and find new things in. But you know, it's always so memorable. Since the first time I saw it, I remembered everything, really. And yeah, although it's quite, you know, quite a short film, it does cover a lot of ground, and you know, the narrative is so strong that really I have to give this film a 99%. I think it's a masterpiece. It makes it to that level. Just not quite perfect, and not, well, I mean, not all my 100% have to be quite, you know, perfect films. But you know, this one is a film that has a couple of flaws that do, for me, detract from that 100. And just really, yeah, that 99 is still a masterpiece from me. Just a slightly flawed one, but such an underrated film. A wonderful film, powerful, funny, of course. You know, very artistically shot, and edited, and just the use of music is really something I really look out for. Is a director who can use classical music like this as well, and just elevate different scenes and just make it part of the actual narrative, and the way that, in relation to the characters and everything, and the mood of the film, the tone of the film. Tonally, this is almost perfect. You know, as I've said, it is a masterpiece, and highly recommend Bronson if you've not seen it. One of Refn's absolute best. And you know, next up will be Valhalla Rising, another Refn film, and maybe, you know, if I get the time at some point this week, Drive, another Refn film. So thanks for watching my review of Nicolas Refn's Bronson.